New premier partner Snickerdoodle. They're putting 1 million DGen into supporting Farcaster's growth where your voice matters. Take their surveys, earn DGen, and help build the future of this platform. It's simple. Head to Snickerdoodle's Share to Earn channel, find and take the surveys, share them, and claim your rewards. Let's help shape this space together. And welcome Snickerdoodle to the GM Farcaster family. GM Farcaster, and welcome Snickerdoodle and JP and Greg from Snickerdoodle to GM Farcaster, your first visit with us.
It's great to be here.
We're excited to have you here.
GM. I feel like we've been in the squares before, though, so it feels like we're here, but we're not.
Feels very comfortable.
We're back home is what it feels like.
We're just not in Google Meet chatting about stuff, but yeah, it's a very familiar feel. Excited to have you here. We're doing a little bit of recasting and retweeting, making sure people know we are live, and very excited because today we are going to be talking about the State of Farcaster report and doing sort of a sneak peek at this. And do you want to give us a little intro as to what this is and why you went about putting this together before we dive in and start exploring it? And I'll leave that to either JP or Greg, whoever wants to kick it.
I'll let Greg do it. Greg put his heart and soul into this, and so I think you want to take the honors here, Greg.
All right. Well, thank you. Yeah. So, I think as folks have been watching the show are well aware, we are helping to bring awareness to what's going on in Farcaster as sort of a social platform to the creators that are there. But one of the common questions we got when we talked to folks was, so who exactly is on Farcaster, right? Like what kinds of folks are there? What are they doing there? Why are they there? Should I be there ultimately, right? And so what we realized was that there really wasn't, much as other more established spaces are, there isn't really this media kit, this fact sheet, or really this other sort of insight into the users and the platform itself. And it's very mysterious to sort of the rest of the world. And we wanted to sort of debunk a bunch of that. As one of our friends, Meta David, actually was commenting, he saw we were going to be on later. He's like, I love that you guys were able to do this permissionlessly. And I think it's important to point out, we did this without any participation or feedback from the Farcaster team or team themselves. But we were able to leverage a number of different data sources, from blockchain data to our own survey platform, as well as our own independent wallet analysis, to put together a picture of what's really going on in Farcaster today. And I will note, we've tried to be as objective as possible in this report. Now, I'll let the prof and Adrian comment if they think that's not true. But we really didn't try to impart any particular point of view in the report itself. We sort of took the data, captured the data, made it look pretty, but then just sort of told the story that was there. We didn't try to annotate it or do anything else to that. We did come to a few conclusions that we think were sort of our key takeaways for our customers and for the ecosystem. But at heart, we think Farcaster is a really compelling place to be. We wanted to make that case to the rest of the world. And the way most people think is with data. And so we wanted to get the data to make that possible.
Amazing. Greg, I got the preview of the report, and first of all, I love it. Cannot wait for everybody to see it. And that was one of the things, I editorialize, I love Farcaster. I probably would have, I couldn't believe how factual it was. It really, just how neutral it was.
We would not have been neutral.
Yeah, we're like, well, how can I change that stat?
Passover matzah neutral.
Yeah, we really wanted this to be something that frankly a big brand or Web2 company could come and see, statistical significance, and really wanted to get the best possible. We were even Greg and I were talking about, what is Dan going to say from Farcaster? Because, it is very neutral, and obviously people wanted to be in the best positive light. And I think, if you look at some of the key findings, there's some really, really important things we draw out. Just maybe to highlight one of those is from a narrative perspective, we know that the Farcaster community is small but mighty. You have some incredibly high quality folks that are really curating, and the shamans and tastemakers of Web3. I mean, maybe Prof and Adrian, you guys can be these Web3 shamans. But that being said, like, it's a small community, but very
new title unlocked. New title
There you go.
unlocked. Shaman.
Web3 shaman.
Web3 shaman.
I'll
Love
just stay
it.
away
I
from
gotta go
Jan
pick up that
6
ENS. I'll be right back.
Yeah, BRB.
Web3shaman.eth.
But the key thing here is, like, this is what everybody should be doing in Web3 to test. If you're doing pre-production on a technical side, this is where you want to test features. If you're doing calibration of a marketing campaign, this is where you're going to get the best, honest, high-quality feedback before you go 10, 20x the spend in Twitter or Telegram or Discord. So we think this bodes well for the ecosystem in the short term, and the sky's the limit in the long term, as I think that everybody's trying to make this a smashing success.
Awesome.
Great.
All right, let's dive in. So I'm so excited about this. I started looking through, and it's very comprehensive. So let's dive in. Little introduction, which we kind of already did, but you did have 4.9K individual respondents and 38K connected wallets. From a research perspective, that's huge. That's a huge sample size. Like, just so people understand, like, academic research, like 400 is the number they try to shoot for. So just so you know, if you're wondering why, academic research, you get one thing that says one thing and another thing that says another thing, because usually it's a very small sample size. So this is significant. I think this is really, significant in terms of what you looked at.
And one of the stats that's not here, actually, Prof, that I forgot. This has been the bane of my existence for about a month. We've actually done, I was just summing it up. There's almost like 36,000 actual survey responses that were given. Wow. And each survey had about 5 questions in it. So if you just play that out, it's about 150,000 questions that were answered in the course of, like, populating this study.
That's a significant sample size. That's huge.
Yeah.
It's really huge. Okay. So talk a little bit about sort of this general, like, I'm just going to let you kind of walk us through your results and what you document.
So this is really from the protocol side. And so this, we did leverage a number of Dune analytics and dashboards that were put together. I think if it's good enough for Dan to raise money with, it's definitely good enough to report on the ecosystem with, right? And what we found was that the best way to measure actual users was the folks, not FIDs per se, but people who had storage, right? And so the 685,000 represents how many people actually have attached storage to their account, which is pretty phenomenal if you do think about it, though, because these are all people who basically paid to use this product. Right. But the more interesting stat was one of the questions that we asked was, how do you actually identify, right? And the choices they were given here was like, are you a builder, an influencer, a creator, or a consumer? And 68% of folks said they were either a creator or an influencer.
That's really interesting. And I think when I answered this, I said creator as well.
As I would imagine.
I felt weird saying influencer. That felt weird. So I did not say that. But that probably is a little bit accurate as well, at least within that tiny ecosystem. Yeah. And then Adrian, I'm going to guess you probably said the same. So that's tremendous.
But I also at Farcaster, I'm surprised there weren't more builders, because I just think builder just in the Farcaster ecosystem means so many things to so many people. Whereas even the creators and influencers, I think, identify as builders.
Yeah. That's true. And I think maybe for this purpose, it was more devs. Might have been more devs. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you gotta all remember, like, this is a sample, so I would also venture probably the builders are busier than others might be, right? In terms of time spent, and they may not be here as engaging as much. Like as we all know, like I think it is interesting. But my experience is that I met a lot of builders, but I certainly met a lot of folks who identify as creators, and it probably marries to my experience as well.
Yeah.
And then let's get into user engagement. So we have a high level of user engagement. So what are we looking at here, Greg? Or JP?
Yeah. Or JP, I don't know if you want to do it or if you want me to annotate.
Yeah, I mean, on this one, we're basically showing that there's a high number of multiple casts per user per month, which we think exceeds what we've seen on Twitter. And, you're looking at, considering the size of Farcaster, you're looking at, nearly triple that on the average reactions per day, which means that the average Farcaster user is engaging with this on a regular basis, is doing multiple of these deep dives. And the active user count, I think, definitely picked up over the summer. And we've seen some tweaks over the summer from Dan and team. It's still remarkably high, which is very, very different from, I think, peer group out there. If you look what's happening on Lens and a couple of these other Web3 socials, there's been a significant amount of staying power and active cast from some of these power users.
Yeah, and I'll grab a number from the report. It's basically we found there was 123,000 lightly engaged users casting fewer than 25 times per month, right?
Wow.
But that still leaves about 400-something thousand users that are actually casting more than 25, which is around one per day, right? When you look at those numbers side by side, 685,000 people with storage, 635,000 average cast per day. It's almost like working out to almost every user casting every day, though, right? Like, if you fully just averaged it out. But as you can see, about 5% are doing 250 casts per month, right? So it's probably more in that 8 to 10 per day sort of range. So there are a lot of very engaged people, but it seems like there's a decent level of engagement across the board from the user base, relatively speaking.
It's interesting. So when I think about the general social media stats, which they usually peg at 90%, are just
Precisely.
consuming and not engaging at all. This is a very
completely
different.
The opposite.
Yeah, it's very
Right?
different. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, it's like the
so
inverse
that's
of the normal pyramid, right?
Yeah, it's huge.
So very, very interesting and very dynamic, and that's part of why our recommendations were like, this is a set of people who can make content, right? Like, compared to other places.
Well, they can make content, and they're actively consuming and analyzing and reiterating and pushing out versions of that, which is just a 180 from Twitter and Telegram at this point.
That's really interesting. And then this is the average cast per day. That's the average number of casts per day. And we know that right now, daily active users has been hovering around 60,000. So you've
got changed.
That's pretty
cool.
Oh, no. Do I have an older version?
No. Did you download this one, or is this straight from the drive?
That was from the drive, I thought.
Okay. I thought we changed this. That number is going to be changed. We'll be updating it. Yeah. But
sorry.
Sneak peek. This is it. You're getting the sneak peek. This is.
I will say this one wasn't that surprising in terms of most popular chains, and I think it reflects Base leaning into the Farcaster community, which I think really shows a good case study of what happens when you do engage in a very positive way and within the Farcaster ecosystem. You can see it right there. So no surprises here at all in terms of most popular chains or tokens held by unique holders, for sure. Was this kind of what you expected as well when you looked at this? Were any surprises here?
This one wasn't as surprising. Obviously, DGen is kind of coin of the realm, and I think Base, obviously, given the ecosystem, and Base has been super supportive. So it's a case study just on Base and how to build a proper ecosystem, which I think has been difficult for a lot of L2s in the last few months, even the last few years. I would say that I think this is an environment where meme coins have done probably better, and some of these kind of, I wouldn't necessarily say DGen's a meme coin at this point. I think there's some utility, but those types of coins have definitely gotten a foothold here which is really cool to see outside of a Solana ecosystem.
Yeah.
So from the frame version, I'll give you the 2 stats that are actually in that box as well.
Okay.
So one of the things that we did was we ran it through a service to try to detect if it was a bot or not. And what we found was that 90% of the wallets actually registered or came up as human, right? So, you know, and I think like for other reasons why folks may be farming, you may see a lot more bot activity at the edge, you know, or sorry, like in like up close when you're sort of like with your posts, et cetera. But from a wallet point of view, we did not encounter a significant number of wallets from the analysis we did.
Interesting.
Now, the other stat I'll share though, is that 38% of the wallets of the 38,000 wallets that we analyzed connected to the respondents have greater than $1,000 balance in their wallet.
Interesting. And that from a perspective of a brand wanting to engage an audience, that's going to be something that they'll look at for sure.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Let's talk about, sorry, let me jump back. Go ahead, Adrian.
Yeah, well, just for the number of casts per day, is that including replies? Or
I believe that's an all-inclusive number, yeah, because we got that from the the Pixel Hack Dune dashboard, I believe. So it's an aggregate number of, and yes, and to that point, replies and or comments essentially, right, are all casts. It's just whether or not there's a parent ID, right?
Gotcha. Yeah, that's a great question. Thank you. Was that Galazio I saw? Hey, Galazio.
That is.
Good question. Demographics, and I have a huge question on this one. Really? Only 53%? That seems low. What were did you have a lot who didn't either answer the gender question or chose non-binary, or was there, because I was expecting about 30% to be female, but I'm not sure how that's breaking down on your end, but I'm really curious on the demographics.
So I can tell you 7% identified as non-binary. Okay. And 6% chose not to reply. So there's another 13%, you know, sort of unaccounted for relative to male-female split.
Okay, so a little closer to what I was expecting.
Yeah.
All right. Interesting. So from this sort of the demographics, what did you glean from this? Anything interesting, surprising to you?
Oh, by the way, I should point out though, the female percent is 34%.
Okay, that's seems right.
Yeah,
that seems right.
In the full report, actually, you'll see this breakdown by power badge as well. And so it's power badges skew much more male. Actually, 75% male for the power badges represented in the study versus 19%.
That's interesting.
You know, actually, you know, I wonder. There is a frame version of this live now. And you can go through it too. So either way, whichever you like, we just posted it on our account. So there is a frame version with the version of this presentation there as well.
I'm going to go with this because I think it'll show better on the screen, especially for sure. Like if people are watching on YouTube, on TV or something like that. I think this will cover a little better. But that's good to know. We will recast that frame version in GM Farcaster and push that out so people see it, so they can kind of dive in and dig a little deeper. You know, the age group was not surprising because we've kind of seen those numbers before, but children surprised me a little bit that were 60%. So
definitely
that was surprising. Yeah, especially for a younger demographic.
I was very surprised by this number.
You're shocked by that one. Yeah. Pets isn't surprised, but children.
Pets isn't surprising.
Yes. My only hypothesis is that when you look at the geographic breakdown, that I think Americans tend to be much more childless than other folks, maybe, right? Like, is my only theory. And, you know, we have a very large representation from Asia. Yeah. And so I have no way to connect these dots. We didn't try to do that. Like, we could actually do the crosstab and see like who, you know, which age group was saying they had kids. Might be interesting for a follow-up. But yeah, from the overall point of view, we did get a pretty, this question was actually asked as part of our household. And so actually, sorry, to be clear, this is not if you have children. This
Right.
is, do you live with children?
Right.
So it could be
Right.
multi-generational families as
Absolutely,
well.
yes.
Mo-
So
yeah.
important
Or
clarification. So
could be
or
children.
multifamily. Mhm.
you could also
Yeah,
be
do you
a child.
identify as a child?
Yes.
That's possible.
We know the degen crowd.
Adrian's
Yeah.
already onboarded a couple of her kids, so it could
Yeah.
be that. So that's but it still was higher than I anticipated. But it also, from what I've seen in terms of active channels, parenting's a pretty active channel, and it tends to be folks with younger children. From what I've seen in terms of the questions and discussions and things like that. So not all that surprising, but a little bit. Interesting. So, okay, in terms of features and trends, what are you seeing here, and what kind of analysis would you make from this?
Yeah, great question. So we asked a few questions around like kind of what are you using or what do you like the most right now? But then we also asked an open-ended question where you could basically suggest or just write in the feature you wanted the most, right? So the first chart is, what feature do you like the most? And so this was originally just sort of like there's 3 or 4 key capabilities inside of, the Warpcast client, let's call it at least, right, for now. So frames, the feed, the direct cast, and channels. Surprisingly to me, frames weren't higher, but channels definitely dominated for where I believe there was tons of where people, I think when Dan mentioned this a while back that he, if Reddit was an independent business, every channel would be a millionaire, right? Like every channel operator would be a millionaire, right? I think that future resonates with a lot of people, right? And they understand like the potentiality of that. And they can imagine themselves maybe in that role, right? I would say like what's been interesting though is that there's some other stats that you'll find later in the report, like where we dive into channels. The content per channel is actually very low still, even though people's favorite feature is channels itself, right?
Yeah.
So I think still there's a great deal of work to be done to sort of improve sort of the channel experience and the infrastructure around channels and ultimately the engagement model for channels. And
Interesting timing.
Yeah.
Amazing timing. So I know you've been busy today, Greg, but right before this, we chatted with Dan.
Dan was on this. I didn't get to see it. So
yeah, I
please.
figured you were no, honestly, I'm being serious. Like I know you were busy today. But that was the whole conversation was about channels, what they're planning to do, the focus that they're putting around that over the next few weeks.
Oh, great.
So this really supports that direction that they've been thinking about and that they're now moving towards. So that's fantastic.
Awesome. Yeah. Well, people like it for sure. Right.
That's really good to say.
This is really interesting too, right? And it does show because I think the general consensus is channels have been either underinvested in or kind of like not enough attention has from a product perspective.
Most of the
but
growth
the fact
has
that
been
people are still
organic.
liking them.
Yeah, it's organic growth for a lot of these things, which was given those constraints pretty powerful.
And it's pretty even, interestingly, right? Like it's not like the Power Badge folks like it one way or another. Now, where that's not true is what the primary activity is, right? So if we look at that little chart in the bottom right, this is what folks, like we asked them to classify like what their primary activity was on Farcaster: consuming, creating, engaging, or farming, right? We did get people to admit that they were there farming. So I respect the transparency, right? But if you look at the dichotomy here, when folks are like, how do I be more successful, right? I think the common trope is create quality content. However, if you look at what the Power Badge people are doing, it's spending most of their time engaging with others.
Mm-hmm.
And we highly recommend that all the time when we're talking to folks who are new. We're saying don't worry about as much your own cast. Cast what you want and cast what makes sense, but go into others' casts and reply, but do it in a genuine way. Find things that are interesting to you, and engage in that way. And you're going to then find your people, and you're going to find people who you want to interact with, who are going to follow you. You're going to follow, that kind of stuff. So that lines up perfectly with kind of our general thinking here. So
Great.
very
Now, this
interesting.
last box that you have here is the most desired features, right?
Yeah, that's
I'm
interesting.
kind of curious where you all fit, but what we did is we basically used some AI to like sort of group and aggregate kind of the answers into common categories. And these were, a lot of them are very crypto-centric, I would say, right? To me, this also represents an interesting opportunity for the ecosystem, because I feel like as permissionless and decentralized as Farcaster is, I would argue it hasn't leaned into what's really possible because of that nearly as much yet, right? And it doesn't necessarily mean just more degen things. I think like the blockchain, the technology stack itself has a lot more ways for us to rethink things, right? That haven't necessarily been rethought in a long time, right? Like we're still using the post and feed model that existed 20 plus years ago now.
At this point, 20 years ago.
Now, topping the list, though, the top three things, which was a tie, literally like they were even, was degen specific features and improvements. No surprise. Crypto and Web3 integrations, more NFTs and tokens to be tied in. And then earnings and reward systems and airdrops. Oh, we have a typo in here, guys.
This is going to kill Greg today.
You do not know how many times I have re-exported.
I'm sure.
But I would also go further down the list. We've got token swaps and exchanges also on that list.
Interesting.
Right?
Yeah.
Now, the thing that struck me interesting, actually, and it's small, but it's an interesting thing, which is that everyone knows the blockchain is permanent, right? But what folks really want, what showed up high on this list was still the ability to edit their posts and comments, right?
Yeah.
I don't know, I see Adrian's thinking about something there.
Well,
we call that Adrian face, in case you didn't know.
God. Welcome. Yeah. Greg,
welcome to Adrian face.
Welcome to your first live Adrian face. I can't control it. I'm sorry. Posts, though, are not on a blockchain on Farcaster.
Mm-hmm.
That's actually true.
Your identity is, right? Your identity is, it's on Hubs. It's distributed.
It's a little different.
But
but I believe what the problem is it emulates the behavior because of like Hubs and the sort of syndication model, right? And so yes, that introduces its own sort of like, you know, for example, when we tried to do a thread, you can't guarantee posts in a certain order, right? So I think there's like this consistency sort of challenge, you know, inside of the realm of social content still, right? Like, especially as it aims to be more and more decentralized or distributed, like in nature.
But I, of course, still also want edit. I always want an edit button.
I don't, but this is also an example, though, I think, of like what people in the crypto space get critiqued about all the time, which is trying to put blockchain first and not the use case. And it's like, figure out the use cases later. And this is like okay, well, what do people want? How do we figure out how to do that? So I don't know. Listen to people if they want the edit.
I do want to put one plug into in terms of the NFT part of this. I'd like the NFT feedback. It was really cool. I want it back. There used to be a feed of the minting and like most popular things being minted.
Yeah.
I would go and check there and I would find cool things.
But that's one of those points, right? About, you know, like there's an inherent sort of predictive market. If you're looking at like, you know, now there's other tools being built on the side that are showing like follow the transactions of your favorite people, right? Or your favorite Farcasters, etc. There's something interesting. There's other compelling things I think going on. What stood out, another one though, probably one of the standout categories was the video related features. And I do think, you know, as we're all video creators here, you know, I think it certainly stands out that the state of the art of media is quite rich and nuanced today. And what's interesting to me personally, just looking at, I've been a creator for 20 something years and building tools for creators is, you know, I think to me, I'm surprised frames weren't more up there because it was a truly unique content type, right? Yeah. And my advice is, you know, and the things we're looking at is I want to experiment with more content types, right? Because I feel like, you know, that unlock of like frames led to significant growth for the platform. And I feel like right now, and I've heard you all chat about this as well in the show, but you're kind of stuck in between. Am I a Reddit? Am I a Twitter? And well, then I'm not going to leave either one if it's a subpar experience of either one of those things per se, right?
Yeah, it needs to be something different. It needs to be a third thing, right? It's Reddit and Twitter had a baby, but then it needs to be a third thing. And this is part of that third
I guess
thing.
at least what's the meaning of the baby? Like, what does
Right.
the baby look like, right? Like, as opposed to it being both parents right now, right? Like, 'cause both parents are present in the product, but what would their union look like? What does that child look like, right? And I feel like there's still just a lot of room to continue to grow into that dynamic. You know, like we don't get synapses summaries. We don't get, you know, leaderboards. We don't get a lot of the other things that would be possible, right? Like inside of the kind of ecosystem. We don't get thought leaders. We don't get experts. We don't get all these other kind of roles like emergent, right? Like from the ecosystem. So I still think there's going to be a lot of interesting things left to happen here.
Yeah, totally agree.
The last shout out, by the way, can I just give a shout out and just, this is not about the data, but it's a meta comment. Thank you for giving us bars and not a pie chart, Greg. The data people love you.
Like, thank you.
I hate pie charts for the most part.
Isn't there one? I think there's one somewhere.
We have a few, but like only when it's like you can actually discern the parts.
Yeah, for the
right?
nine times out of 10, pie charts should not be used.
They should not be
they're
used
when they should not be. So
yes.
I appreciate.
Okay, so this is growing on Farcaster, talking about engagement and challenges and things like that. So what did you learn from this particular topic?
JP, I'll let you do this one.
I mean, from a perspective of like learning on this, I would say the following. Like, this is, there's like a delta for the broader spectrum here. Like, people still find it, I think, difficult to grow on Farcaster. There still seems to be, I think, kind of like an inside baseball perspective. I think we've talked about this, you know, Prof and Adrian, and it's something we've definitely seen working with some of the bigger creators here. I think people mean very, very well. I think this is something where if we can open this up and further democratize it, this is probably one of those impediments to really unleashing a 10 or 100x on the population growth. And people being like, there's an access point. You know, like a lot of NFT projects, you've had people come in early and stake claims, and now it kind of feels like the early winners have been decided. I don't think that's yet the case for Farcaster, but I do think there's a perception that might be the case unless some of these changes we've been discussing really kind of move forward. So a lot of it is, you know, getting content out there that's high quality, that can still be difficult wherever you're at. Understanding the algorithms are something that because there's so much is in flux that you might master power badges, but then power badges
it goes away.
You're still in Supercast. If you like your power badge, you can go to Supercast.
Exactly. And then like a lot of it's just knowing the right people, and like that can be difficult. I mean, we've been very lucky to meet some of the great creators here in the space. You know, Isaac on our team is very close to Ted, and she's phenomenal. And, you know, Prof and Adrian, I would definitely count you guys as some of these kind of key Web3 shamans, Farcaster shamans. But for a lot of people that are just getting active, especially folks from outside the US and Europe, it can definitely feel daunting to try to kind of make these connections in a meaningful way that doesn't feel that scammy and it doesn't feel purely transactional. So this is the case of, I don't think it's isolated to Farcaster. This is true of building any social network. But these are things that the data definitely says that is a delta. And if this report gives Dan and his team some insight, the hope is this can help us all succeed, and rising tides will lift all boats.
I totally agree. And I think also there might be, you know, similar to what we were talking about earlier, that the engagement, the replying, the connecting on content that's interesting to you and, you know, areas you might have an expertise or something like that is going to be more valuable than worrying about like, how am I going to say something that other people are going to engage in? You know, it's kind of flip the script on that. the reply guys know what they're doing. They're be a reply guy. What I
this
find
should
really,
emphasize channels. Yeah, this should emphasize the power of channels, and that continues to grow, and you have your subject matter experts.
and I think this is where we're seeing those threads and those like ahas coming through. I think it's funny that the power badge, I don't have enough time. What stops you from spending more time on Farcaster? That answer probably should have been, I already spend 10 hours a day and I don't have more time.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, the power badge is
no more hours in the day.
Yeah.
It's really the answer. Not, I don't have more time. I need more hours in the day because I'm already here most of my waking ones.
No.
It's funny.
See, the numbers are lined up wrong.
Oh no, what? On which one?
Not the same.
Oh no.
It's a misalignment. And is that just an alignment issue, Greg?
Oh, an alignment issue.
Yeah. It's just, like.
It's the details. I get it. I wonder
By the way, you can
when you do a report, everything is details, which is the crazy part.
I know.
But honestly, the beauty of the sneak peek is I think we could have given you like an infinite amount of time in it and you don't see it. So we have to show it to everyone.
No, without
live.
a doubt.
Then you find all the typos
100%.
as soon as you hit.
So this is talking about the future of Farcaster and what people think. And I found this one really interesting from the Power Badge versus non. And for this purpose, Power Badge used to be that you had, 400 followers at least, and that you were casting at a certain level and engaging at a certain level. And that's how you got the Power Badge. So mostly that's going to be a lot of OGs, people who've been here for a while, just to kind of give context for folks who may not understand that part. So what did you learn here? Did anything surprise you, or did this kind of line up the way you expected?
I mean, from this perspective, I'll give a quick thought, Greg, and I'll go to you. This is what I think really powered this narrative of like the Web3 concentrated experience, and like taking it is as it is right now. Like this is the most powerful environment in Web3 to understand and calibrate a product launch or a feature set or a media campaign. Like that is super, super valuable because talking to founders in the space, at least from our end, people want people to try their products. People want to figure out product discovery. People want to figure out product iteration. The types of things that you would expect in a Web2 build experience still aren't fully there in Web3. You can debate that's good or bad, but just take it as it is for right now. And this really powered this narrative that for Farcaster builders and for Farcaster users outside of Dan and that kind of crazy raise they did, which will hopefully keep them going for a long time. This is a great way to monetize and a great way to leverage those relationships and networks to scale value. So that's really finding one. This is a concentrated Web3 expertise and experience hub. Maybe Greg, do you want to cover points 2 and 3?
Yeah, I will do 2 and 3, but I actually want to just go back to the chart, I guess, first real quick. And to me, this is not surprising, and it may be scary. And again, to the point we made earlier about not trying to hide or just tell a story that was only positive. We could have left this slide out, right? Yeah. And just sort of not shared this data because it may make the place look bad. I actually don't think it does, though. Right?
I don't either. Yeah.
I think everyone should be not sure, if you ask me, right? Because as we all know, 95, 98% of startups are going to fail, right? I think like 99.5% of net new social networks have failed, right? Like in the course of the last 20 years. So if you were positive it's going to work, hey, I don't know. But the folks who think it's not gonna make it, they're probably just a little bit pragmatic or realist relative to the math, the probabilistic math of like how these things go, right? But if you really look at this chart, it says that like 75% of people think it has a shot, right?
Yeah.
And
that to me is really this to me was very positive. I was like, wow, that's pretty.
Half the
big
people
numbers.
think it's probably gonna make it, right?
Yeah.
So I think this bodes well for the folks who are here and the kind of people that are here, right? And I think to JP's point, on points 2 and 3 about like kind of what we think about for the future. And by the way, just to be clear, this is what we think is like next, but we don't know that, next year, by the time you do this study again, the whole world may be different about Farcaster, right? But in the short term, this ability to experiment with new ways, like I've seen how you all glue together a variety of things, that type of innovation, right? And that willing to experiment with making new content types and making new experiences, that's a thing you're not going to find like on Twitter, crypto Twitter, or somewhere else, right? And at the same time, and we didn't even put any of the stats in here, but the second half of the report is all demographic, psychographic stuff about tech, beauty, fashion, shopping, etc. Right? What we found is that while these folks that are in Farcaster are very much crypto natives, the other parts of their lives look like everyone else's, right? They're not like the folks that only do crypto, the pure play maxis who like don't want to touch anything in the traditional world. What we found is that they look a lot like what your traditional consumer looks like still, right? And I actually think that's a massive attribute for the ecosystem, as opposed to a bunch of maxis who are going to be purists about everything and not ever forgive anything that's not perfect.
I think if you look at the top channels too, that's reflective. Yes, you have the crypto channels that are like base and things like that that are up there, but you also have tabletop and memes as being like two of the most active and most followed channels, and those are obviously irrelevant to crypto. They exist everywhere. So I think that's a really good insight. Okay, so talk to us about what's next. What comes next with the report, as well as other highlights or other gleams of interesting things that you gleaned from the report, from doing this.
Yeah, so I'll tell you the tactical things. JP, I'll let him speak to sort of the strategic stuff, but we have now launched a frame version of this preview that you've just went through. It's live. If you go to our Snickerdoodle account, you'll find that frame. By all means, we hope and encourage that you can share it so others can see it. You don't have to put any info in to get all these insights, but if you want the full report, there's a new page on our website for the report where you can download it. You put your email address in, we'll send you a link to the full report as well, right? That's already there. That's live. Next week, we will be at Token, and we'll be talking about this a bit at FarCon Asia as well. And we're continuing to invest in the ecosystem and the space here. I'll let JP put a little bit more about like how we're planning to use this now and like sort of what we're hoping to do with it as well.
I mean, this report really comes down to us, I think, broadening the appeal of Farcaster for new audiences. And like, this is something that we think will support the ecosystem. It's not just the million degen that we're investing in this and the other resources we will put into the ecosystem. It is a matter of how do we get compelling big brands in Web 2 interested in this environment to test? And frankly, how do we get other big companies in Web 3 who may not have an active presence to invest the time and resources? Because Greg, we talk to people every week, and I think one of the most popular questions we get is, how do we even start? Like, what's the starting point of Farcaster? How do we do this in a way that's time efficient to existing infrastructure and the different types of things people are already doing? And if we can use this to demonstrate strategically that this is very, very much worth your time and attention, I think that's going to scale the ecosystem. It's going to be great for everybody, for your token holders, for your people building, for your people testing. And that's really our hope. And this is straight and focused right now on this, and we're here to stay. So we're going to be here pushing this out, and we hope this is the first of many annual reports that kind of show the traction year over year for Farcaster.
Yeah, now we did. So yeah, JP, the million degen comment came up. We did fund the research with a million degen, and you can actually still take the surveys. Yeah. Right. So from our share to earn channel on Farcaster or from our account, you'll be able to find all of the existing surveys. There's still actually room in a few of them to actually still complete them. Don't worry, the data will never go we're still working now to bring more advertisers and sponsors into the fold. And of course, we are working with our friends here at GM Farcaster to turn some of these insights now into educational materials. Do you all want to share a little bit about what we're planning on behind the scenes?
Yeah. I was just thinking that. So that's first I want to share this just so that everybody knows. Share to Earn channel is where you're going to find the surveys ongoing. So make sure you check that out.
And we've talked about this, by the way. I know we talked about how the surveys work before, but if you haven't heard it, just you engage in the survey or you engage with a frame, you get paid DGen. You don't have to connect a wallet. You don't have to sign up. You don't, it's just, it happens completely seamlessly in the background. So go to that Share to Earn channel. You can submit the surveys.
Yep.
And it's funded with DGen.
Well, and the other part, Adrian, is if you share it because you find it compelling or interesting, right, you actually get paid for everyone who also completes it.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was showing someone last night at a base meetup, Greg, my wallet of just to kind of show what you guys are doing and just saying like, look, here's a drip of DGen that I'm getting because I shared a survey and other people took it.
Nice.
I was funny. I was looking at my wallet the other day and I'm like, what is all this? Oh, that's what that is. Like, why do I have all these fives? Like, I don't know what all these fives are. And then what we're doing is we partner with Snickerdoodle to create an educational series to help folks come on to Farcaster and sort of taking what they learned in the research, what we know about Farcaster, putting these things together and creating a series of 12, 30-minute-ish around there. You know how we like our ishes. Of content on different topics, starting with like very basic and then diving into a little bit more detail. So that's going to be coming very, very soon. We've been working on that content with the team for a bit here now and starting to push out getting some videos ready and readying that content. But we're excited to help with this. I love this report. I think it's super useful for the whole ecosystem. I think there's a lot of folks who can take this to what they're doing around Farcaster in terms of the businesses and projects that they're building, that this is going to be really helpful either in helping them evaluate their direction or kind of confirming where they're going. So for example, the information about channels, I think is perfect for what Merkle is doing right now. To have that information, solidified for them is super helpful in terms of their priorities.
And I was listening this morning to the first stream a little bit before I had my first call. But, as Adrian mentioned, like if you are trying to seek out a sponsor, right, this is the tool. Hopefully this is a resource for you now to be able to go and say, no, like these are the kinds of people that are there. If you need help identifying who's in your audience, that's what we're here for. Come to us. We will work with you to help you develop your own profile for your channel and start to help you connect with sponsors to try to help, fund your future growth on Farcaster as well.
I think also for brands, partnering with existing channels that have really good followings and that have strong community and strong hosts of that channel that are developing things, that's going to be super useful as well. Or kind of maybe even buying out a channel or something like that, where it makes sense for them. If you're a fitness brand, partnering with the fitness channel or saying, hey, can I just, take this over from you, could be really interesting as well, depending on what it was. But I think also I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity there for channels 100%. that are really engaging and creating communities. Adrian, was there anything else that we didn't cover that you wanted to ask the team or that you saw in
Greg,
the report?
Remind me how many total pages the report is, the full report.
There are 118 pages in the primary report. There's another 12 pages in the highlight version, and then there's another 22 images generated for the frame. So whenever we find one typo, it has to get updated multiple times all the way through.
That's why his whole focus on everything. Like you realize you're the only one who noticed the typos or the little issues.
I would argue Sarah is probably even more picky about these things. So And she's been responsible for all the copy editing and going through and unifying all the language. So shout outs and props to Sarah. And of course to Mikhail on our team, our designer, who put together all these screens, by hand,
amazing.
basically. Yeah. So,
well, you guys have been
pretty
working
psyched
really
and
hard.
excited.
And just, I know you're going to share some previews, but like people really should like give an email and download the whole report because there's so much in it and it's really valuable. I cried a few times to Sarah.
This is true. Sarah's deserved a long weekend. She's taking a break, hopefully.
So if you have some extra DJ today, go tip Sarah.
Please just download the report. It's head over to snickerdoodle.com. You can there's a banner at the top that'll take you straight to the report. There's a little bit of extra a roll up. One of the interesting things, I don't know if you want to pull up that page actually, we did make an estimate of how big the market is also. And there was a lot of discussion about whether or not we should put this number out there, but it's a big number actually.
Okay, hold on.
Okay, so while Prof is pulling it up, if anyone in the chat wants to drop in their guesses, what is the total market size for Farcaster? So that's kind of value of all connected wallets of Farcaster users. What is the value?
Is it going to be here? It's going to be at the
right there.
Okay.
Oh, there, that's right.
I want to make sure I'm going the right place. And where there we go. Wow.
It's a big number. Definitely on par with some of the biggest networks out there.
Wow. That's pretty big. That's a big number.
We got that by modeling, taking the 38,000 wallets we analyzed, extrapolating upwards to the approximately 800,000 connected wallets with the ratios. And then we computed the value of those 38,000 wallets. So if you sort of lean out, by the way, we did do this analysis for the power badges. I don't have the numbers in front of me. But we actually analyzed all the power badge wallets. So we have like true statistical data on that, but they're a very small subset of the ecosystem.
That's amazing. And so this is where you can go and pick this up. Go to snickerdoodle.com and you can look at the full report or find the frame in just by following @snickerdoodle. You'll find that frame and you can go through it there. What else didn't we cover? Was there anything? Oh, can you share where you're going to be next week again and just make sure people know where to find you for the IRL events?
Yeah, we'll be at Token 2049 next week. We're going to spend all day at FarCon on Tuesday. We'll talk about this report. Greg's going to be on a great panel about creators and value creation at the end of the day. But would love to reach out on Telegram or on Twitter or LinkedIn. We're happy to find some time to sync up next week in Singapore.
Great. And we're going to be replaying this stream later in the wee hours of the evening for the other side of the world. So for those who are in or who aren't up right now, they'll be watching this later on and they'll be able to go meet you there. Fantastic. And then there's an NYC meetup on October 1st. I want to just shout that out too. That is being sponsored by Snickerdoodle in conjunction. I think that's the one with Base. So fantastic. I think
a few partners now. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, great.
Base community meetup with Snickerdoodle, GM Farcaster, Uno, Laser, Sushi. I'm just making up words now.
Words, just random words she's saying. Yeah. But you'll be there. So Adrian will be there. Isaac will be there. Yeah. So there'll be a few folks there.
It's around the Masari conference, basically.
Right.
At October 1st.
Couple comments from chat that I can't pull up on screen. Greg, everybody loves your shirt. They like the cookies.
Did you not get your
hats? Where's my hat?
In the mail. They should have gotten the hats already.
My hat. I forgot. I was going to bring my hat. JP, where's your hat? Do you have your hat?
My hat. I think my mom stole my hat. She liked it.
Mine was upstairs. I was going to wear it, and then I literally was like, "Oh, you're supposed to be in the stream," so I didn't get to go upstairs to get it. But yeah, we haven't made these yet official, but this is our Snickerdoodle shirt.
Yeah, we need a shirt. We need hats. We need all the merch because we like all the things. And I love that.
Like actual cookies.
We need actual cookies. Love that though. I love your logo. I just think it's really cute and fun. And it's. Do you want to can you talk about really quick why is it called Snickerdoodle?
Yeah, well, it is called Snickerdoodle. The backstory, origin story. I was at a Safeway, and I saw a package of Snickerdoodle cookies, and I was toying around with this idea. This is now in like early 21, and I bought the cookies, came home, and wrote the first deck of the company in about 20 minutes, and more or less 80% of the vision is still more or less the same. I think we've had a lot of nuance to go there, but it really plays to the fact that we want data to be approachable. We want people to feel comfortable and at ease with how they deal with this, which is a very heavy topic nowadays. And it plays to the reference that I think that NFTs and these types of pieces of data infrastructure really are going to power a new way for people to own and control and permission their data, over the next 10, 20, 30 years.
And JP, is that
it's
as
kind of
opposed
playing
to
on
traditional
idea of cookies,
tracking cookies?
Yeah, data
Yeah,
cookies.
it was kind of
Smart,
making fun of like the old cookies. This is definitely a new type of cookie, and it really less on the tracking and more on the data approachability.
Love it. Anything else that we didn't cover that you want to cover before we wrap and move on to our next?
We'd love your feedback, though. I would just say it.
Great. Yeah.
Look,
where's the best place for them to drop that?
Feel free to comment right on our post or DM, direct cast us, or whatever way you feel comfortable communicating. Feel free. We did our best to try to provide a fairly comprehensive look, but look, you never get everything right. Typos aside, you may miss things. We'd love to hear what folks think and what they think, how they would characterize the future, right? I think like the part that we tried to avoid doing, but we'd love to hear from more folks is, now that you've seen this data, what do you think, right?
Yeah.
And where do you think things are going, and what else do you want to communicate back to the ecosystem? Because there's a lot of builders and a lot of people who care. But I will say also, congrats on today, happy birthday.
Thank you.
We're looking. I did mint my NFT this morning.
Yeah, good. And we're hoping to launch a little merch shop ourselves very soon, hopefully this weekend, and that NFT will unlock some fun. So
nice, awesome.
Yeah, so we're excited. Yeah, and maybe we can do a little. We need a Snickerdoodle mug. Ooh,
we do need one of those.
We do need some Snickerdoodle mugs.
That would be, yeah.
We're giving Sarah ideas. Sarah's going to stay up again until midnight.
So I actually created a cute little NFT with our Nownish coffee cup that has a little Snickerdoodle logo on it. So maybe something along those lines. But
very cool.
With Sarah, I'm also open to your design, because you're.
Well, and also we just want to say thank you again for you all for taking the time to release this for us, because we couldn't imagine a better place to do it. Yeah.
So excited. Thank you for letting us be your first stop on your State of Farcaster tour that you're starting.
Yeah. So on the whole, like and guys, on the whole concept of permissionless, when you're like, you didn't ask for permission to do it, but you're doing it because you believe in the growth of Farcaster. We didn't ask for permission to do a media company on Farcaster, but we're doing it because we believe. So just to be able to find, in this crazy world of decentralized people all working towards the same kind of goals, it's really been a blast to work together, and I love to see it. So I'm excited.
It's been really great working with you all. It's a great team. So if you have an opportunity, please make sure you go say hi to them. If you see them next week at Token 2049 or at FarCon Asia or at the base meetup in NYC, make sure you connect, because just some great humans. So, and with that, any last words, Adrian, before we close this out?
I'll see you on hour 6.
All right. We're going to be back.
A few minutes.
We're going to be back in 15 minutes at 1:45 with Tony Hawk and the Noun Square. So we're going to get nouning around a little bit. And with that, we're going to say bye-bye.